Good evening and welcome to all the panelists and participants. I welcome you all for today's session on the topic Cloud Computing Technical and Business Perspectives. Our expert for today's session is Mr. Deepak Goyal sir, and we'll be beginning soon, dear participants. Dear participants, it is to request you to kindly ensure that whatever device you are connected with for today's webinar, you are able to access the chat window, as chat window is an important mechanism through which we will be communicating all through the webinar. Any questions you would be having, you can write us on the chat window. I shall be facilitating those questions by asking them, but at the end of this session. Dear participants, we will be sharing a feedback form link at the end of this session. Stay connected with us till the last of this session and own yourself a certificate of participation despite increasing your knowledge.
Hello, Dr. Ayushi.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Deepak has
How are
joined.
you, sir?
I'm good, Ji.
Jai, good evening.
Good evening, Professor Huda.
See the beauty. We could not meet when you were today in the campus, huh? And we are
Now,
meeting online, huh?
yeah. That
I
is
saw
correct.
you during lunchtime, but then I was occupied. I went somewhere else with some other I guess.
Yeah.
And
It was
good
good.
evening, Mr. Deepak.
Hi, Dr. Sam. Hi, Professor Sam. Hi.
All well?
Yeah, everything is fine. Thank you.
और ये मैं टेक्नोलॉजी की ब्यूटी देखता हूँ कैंपस में एक जगह एक कमरे में रह के नहीं मिल पाए एंड देन वी आर मीटिंग
I was talking to Vijay this morning. He said he
या
was in the campus.
आयुषी आज अजय गोयल सर भी बोलेंगे उनको इनवाइट करना
Okay, sir.
वेलकम नोट
Okay, sir.
बहुत
नहीं,
बहुत
आज
दिनों के बाद अजय अजय गोयल
आज
जी
मुश्किल
आए
है
हैं
एक्चुअली.
हमारे
आई एम ऑन
पास
द वे.
तो क्या मोबाइल से तो बोलना है सब
या. ऑल राइट.
मल्टीटास्किंग एंड 24/7 इंडस्ट्री नहीं सिखाया है सर
ऑफ कोर्स. थैंक यू.
राइट वी कैन स्टार्ट आयुषी प्लीज
Okay, sir. A very pleasant evening to all the distinguished panelists and participants. Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management BVI CAM in association with Computational Intelligence Society chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Computer Society chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Technology and Engineering Management Society chapter of IEEE Delhi section, System, Man and Cybernetics Society chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Communication Society of IEEE Delhi section, Consultants Network Affinity Group of IEEE Delhi section, Life Member Affinity Group of IEEE Delhi section, Inter-Society Relations Standing Committee of IEEE Delhi section, Industry Relations and Special Interest Group on Humanitarian Technology Standing Committees of IEEE Delhi section, Region 10 of IEEE, with the Associations Computer Society of India, Institute of Information Technology Professionals IITP, ISTE Delhi section and IETE Delhi Center as technical collaborator welcomes you all to the webinar on the topic Cloud Computing, Technical and Business Perspectives. It is a moment of pride and honor to announce that we, with united hands, mark special contribution for the monumental occasion Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, an initiative to celebrate 75 years of glorious independence by organizing the thought-provoking sessions for our better future. The webinar is an initiative for celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Cloud computing is rapidly penetrating in almost every walks of life, becoming pervasive and ubiquitous every coming day. The webinar aims to discuss various important aspects like technical and business perspective by key enablers, various service and deployment models, adoption challenges, typical cloud journey, and technical stack layer, and finally the new world beyond cloud and virtualization. The webinar aims with the help of use cases will explore all of these dimensions. I would first take this opportunity to welcome amongst us our distinguished panelists for the day. We are privileged to have amongst us a galaxy of experts. Firstly, I would like to invite Professor Ajay Goyal, sir, Managing Director, Nagaro, one of the most reputed company, to please come up and give the welcome note. Please, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ayushi. My pleasure to be here and really appreciate Professor Huda's initiative. I believe this is 105th such webinar in last roughly 2 years, 2+ years. Excellent initiative, so well done, so professionally done, so knowledgeable, and I'm sure all the participants definitely have a lot of learning. And these are all kind of topics. I've seen it. These are fantastic. So appreciate Professor Huda's initiative. Then Ayushi and Dr. Ritika, the way they are driving it again is good. And then finally the participants who participate on Sunday evening, Saturday evening. It's not easy, but they really do that well. And then welcome Deepak. Welcome to this session and look forward to your cloud computing updates that you provide this esteemed group. So overall, great learning platform. Make the most out of it. The sessions are fantastic, cutting edge, leading edge, research topics, everything which helps all the participants. So with that, I hand it over back to Dr. Ayushi and thank Professor Huda for including me in such interesting sessions. Okay, bye
Thank
bye.
you so much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you for always being there. I would now like to request Professor M.N. Huda, sir, Director, Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management, BVI CAM, and Vice Chairperson, IEEE Delhi Section, to address the participants with his inspiring words. Please, sir.
Am I audible, Ayushi?
Yes, sir, you are.
Good evening, one and all. At the outset, let me welcome my valued speaker for today's technical lecture series, Mr. Deepak Goel, who always say yes to me, and when for this program I requested him, he readily agreed for this program. That is the beauty of this platform, that whomsoever you request, the speakers take pride in telling yes, and that is the level of the confidence with me. Otherwise, the software people, and particularly software company like Capgemini, where he's heading so many departments as a senior director, is so preoccupied. Thank you so much, Mr. Deepak. You are here with us to enlighten us that how cloud computing is going to change and bring a complete paradigm change in case of not only the technical domain but also the business perspective. So thank you so much for having being with all of us. I also take this opportunity to thank my friend Mr. Ajay, who is at the backbone of all these lectures, which I keep on notifying, keep on announcing, and along with me, my team members Ayushi, Dr. Ritika, Uttam, Manish, they get the opportunity to host it. I always say that there should be at the back end who should facilitate us to host it from the front end. जो सामने होते हैं उनको सब देखते हैं, जो बैकग्राउंड पे होते हैं उन्हें कम लोग देखते हैं. अजय जी उन लोगों में से एक हैं. इस वजह से आज मैंने रिक्वेस्ट की कि आज वो हैं तो उन्हें भी इंक्लूड किया जाए, जोड़ा जाए स्पीकर्स में. थैंक यू सो मच मिस्टर अजय फॉर कॉन्स्टेंटली facilitating and supporting this lecture series, not only from your society which you are heading in IEEE industry relations, but also from your personal network, from your professional network. Thank you so much. I take this opportunity to thank my colleagues, friends from various collaborating professional society, particularly Professor Subramaniam Krishnamurthy, the former chairperson of IEEE Delhi section, and everyone else who keep on attending, keep on motivating us for continuing and sustaining this series. And last but not the least, my wonderful, ever energetic set of participants, close to 150 plus such participants who will never miss any such program. Thank you so much, my dear friends, from all parts of the section. और इसीलिए मैंने लास्ट वेबिनार में एक नया शेर कहा था और वो शेर दोबारा रिपीट कर देता हूँ कि हजारों महफिलें हैं, लाखों प्रोग्राम और मेले हैं. हजारों महफिलें हैं, लाखों प्रोग्राम और मेले हैं, पर अगर तुम हमारे साथ नहीं हो तो हम बहुत अकेले हैं. ये इस प्रोग्राम की ब्यूटी है. इतने सारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स फ्रॉम वेरियस पार्ट्स ऑफ द कंट्री एंड अब्रॉड keep on waiting and keep on attending. Otherwise, who attends now the online program? Thank you so much, my dear participants. Dear friends, all of you are aware that this webinar series was started in June 2020 in the backdrop of COVID-19, when entire world was down, locked up, and people who are not knowing what to do, how to do, and how to bring out people from the kind of depressions under which they were going. And we started under discussion with IEEE, and my friends kept helping me. So this series, right from June 2020, is being continued, and this is 105th edition of that technical lecture series, which is being organized today. And all of us are fortunate to be part of this 105th लेक्चर सीरीज. इसीलिए मैंने कोविड के पीरियड में 4 पंक्तियां लिखी थी और ये कहा था कि जो वक्त मिला है वो कुछ करते रहिए. पता नहीं हमें कितना वक्त मिला, ये हमें भी पता नहीं. और इसी वजह से मैंने कहा था कोविड के पीरियड में जब 1 घंटी बजती थी तो ऐसा लगता था कि कोई बुरी खबर आने वाली है. तो उस वक्त ये 4 पंक्तियां लिखी थी कि कल न हम होंगे न कोई गिला होगा. हम होंगे ही नहीं तो आपसे शिकायत करने वाला कौन होगा, आपको इनविटेशन भेज के बुलाने वाला मेरी तरफ से कौन होगा. सो कल न हम होंगे न कोई गिला होगा, बस सिमटी हुई खट्टी मीठी यादों का एक सिलसिला होगा. कल न हम होंगे न कोई गिला होगा, बस सिमटी हुई खट्टी मीठी यादों का एक सिलसिला होगा. जो भी वक्त मिला है आओ अच्छा कुछ कर गुजरे, जाने कल तकदीर का क्या फैसला होगा. सो डियर फ्रेंड्स, ऑल ऑफ अस आर टुगेदर. All of us have committed to engage ourselves in some learning activity. That is what is the purpose of this webinar. So keep attending these lecture series. That will certainly augment your knowledge your body, and will certainly help us to mitigate the challenges which in and around us, the negativity always are being spread. So thank you so much, my dear friends, for being with all of us. Today's topic, the cloud computing, technical and business perspective, is very important and is an evolving topic. If you ask me, probably around a decade ago, I said that the concept of buying everything and keeping everything as an owner of that asset or that technology, or maybe that software, or maybe that hardware, will be the good stories of the past. Wait at least a decade more, after which you may not be needing to purchase anything, rather rent out services. If you look back around a century ago, probably this electricity services in many of the developed nations were not available and were not being provided publicly by some public service provider. Rather, the big people used to have their own electricity stations, used to create electricity and utilize for their purposes. A century ago, many of the countries didn't have the system of security. So Rajas, Maharajas, etc., they used to have their own forces, their own security guard kind of concept to provide security to their mahal, to their palaces, etc., etc. But from there, we have switched to a domain where the services are publicly available. Even as on date, the water supply facility in the country, in the remote part of the country, in villages, etc., are not available. They dig out a boring and install a boring and keep on using that for their purposes. But do you imagine the kind of the expenditure which they put in putting a boring, and the kind of the and the amount of the utilization which for their household purpose which we are utilizing? Probably in 2 decades also they will not be in a position to recover that cost. Whereas in cities and many other parts of the country, the water supply system by some public distribution or public service provider has become in such a way that you need not to dig out a boring, and rather digging out a boring in many of the metro cities is illegal now. So, but water supply is available. You open a tap and water is available to you. You switch on an electrical switch and the electricity is available. You need not to create your own facility. And the beauty of this service is you need to pay only as much as you are going to utilize it. That is the fundamental purpose of the cloud. We need not to invest heavily in the basic infrastructure, rather need to take a subscription, need to avail services, and whenever you are availing services, there will be a meter. That meter will charge you, and you will need to pay only that much that you are utilizing. That was the basic beginning of the cloud, and wherefrom we have come to a level that now we are thinking that virtualization is a story of past. Let's understand that how cloud computing can be utilized. It's not only this, the cloud computing can be utilized for all possible purposes. And when I'm talking of all possible purposes may be from analytics to actual utilization of the software, maybe software testing and development, maybe utilizing it for the purpose of social networking. And analytics is, of course, is a huge domain, and particularly with reference to machine learning and deep learning, data backups and archiving, file storage, disaster recovery, etc., etc. And business processes are so important that if you are going to apply your day-to-day activity through the cloud, so much of analytics will come that analytics will drastically change entire spectrum of your business. And that's how it is said that if the company management wanted to use an ERP, that can be used in the cloud environment. Your CRM applications can be used in a cloud environment. Software as a service is one of the primarily services available, and is not only that, your customers can get services any moment, anytime, anywhere, and that too at an affordable rate. That is the beauty of the cloud. So today's topic has been kept understanding this application, understanding this background, that how, what are the technical perspective, what are the business perspective, and how data driven or analytics driven system using cloud facility can facilitate strategically the entire decision making process. That is the topic, and for which we have invited none other than Mr. Deepak Goyal, who is the senior director at Capgemini and is with all of us to tell us, with the help of the use cases, how industry is benefiting and how the power and the potential of the cloud is being utilized and leveraged for the advantage to the common people. So let's understand, this is such a technology which is going to dominate heavily at least next 2 decades in this industry. And without this, we won't be in a position in coming days to survive in the technical domain. So thank you so much. My last request to all of you, there are a few more lecture series which have already been announced. Every Saturday we are there, except 31st December. That I have kept, will give off to my team also. From this webinar. Incidentally, 31st December comes Saturday. So I thought we'll give you also off, so that year end you can celebrate nicely and need not to be under that pressure that आज हमारा वेबिनार छूटना नहीं चाहिए. तो 31 दिसंबर सिर्फ ऑफ है, बाकी हर सैटरडे कोई तो टॉपिक है. और इसी नोट के साथ के फूलों की तरह फिर खिलेंगे हम, फूलों की तरह फिर खिलेंगे हम, और अगले सैटरडे एक नए टॉपिक के साथ फिर मिलेंगे हम. तो कहीं मत जाइए, जुड़े रहिए हमारे साथ. कीप लर्निंग डिस्पाइट डिसरप्शंस, ऑल ऑफ अस आर वेटिंग फॉर यू. और क्लाउड के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि क्लाउड के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ये पॉसिबल है कि वो टेक्नोलॉजी के मुसाफिर, तुम्हें अभी बहुत दूर जाना है, पत्थरों पे गुलाब खिलाना है और आंधियों में चिराग जलाना है. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best. God bless you all. Over to you, Ayushi.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for always inspiring us. I would now like to welcome amongst us our expert speaker for the day, Mr. Deepak Goyal, sir, with an e-bouquet. Mr. Deepak Goyal, sir, Senior Director at Capgemini with 24 years of industry experience, worked across customers in broad range of technologies, and currently leading a team of product managers with portfolio of products in various domains. Additionally, leading delivery and product strategy in some of the key engagements. In his earlier role, worked as a business development leader, managing business operations and sales. Has extensive years of experience on new age technologies like cloud, containerization, AI, ML, IT service management, telecom, automation, new industry use cases, and highly passionate about learning and also sharing on technologies. I am glad to have you here, sir. I would now like to request you to please enlighten the house. Please, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. And good morning, good evening, wherever you are. So, and thank you, Dr. Huda, for inviting me again. So I think this is this third or fourth webinar that I'm taking over these, few years. So thank you for this. And there's always a great opportunity for all of us. And you are absolutely right. Whenever you would call, we take pride in coming here and share our thoughts. So thank you for this platform. Thank you, Ajay, again inviting me and making sure you have such confidence. So it just shows there. So thank you for that. And Dr. Ritika and Dr. Ayushi, thank you for this opportunity. So I will start my webinar. I'll just share just a minute. I hope it is visible, right?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Thank you. So we'll have this topic of cloud computing, and as Professor Huda has already talked about, I mean, cloud computing is one of those disruptive technologies which actually enabled us to do many things. It is not exactly a technology; it is a paradigm, and it is a culmination of many aspects which actually paves way for many other development and innovation. Right? Something like 5G. I mean, 5G as such, if you see, it's a technology in essence, but then it actually creates an ecosystem of innovations, creates an ecosystem of business opportunities and optimizations and so many things, right? So it's just not something to put it into your infrastructure and just get it done. So we'll talk about all those aspects today. And if you actually start from the basics, we have seen that how the digitizations of everything that we have been using all around has actually created a different ecosystem that we live today, right? With COVID-19, of course, it has accelerated it, right? The technology adoption and the need of these technologies. But if you see even before COVID-19, um, right? And just look into some examples. I mean, from the movie industry where we used to have those VCDs, and I don't know which generation you are all from, but you would have diverse age groups. So we all know that we have those cassettes and VCDs and so on, and now we have uh, we have those services as a streaming services, right, over the cloud, like Netflix or Amazon Music, and so on. Even the music, even the books, everything is getting digitized, and that digitization is not just creating an asset in a digital form. It is also enabling the users to share those information, share that asset, and also pay for those services as much as you are using, rather than you have to buy and then maybe you share with your friends only as a generous gesture, or as a kind of a collaboration tool. But here it is an ecosystem which enables you to share. It enables you to when you are sharing, it enables you to do cost optimizations. So let me get into the agenda first. So we will talk about cloud computing, of course. We'll talk about different service models, different deployment models that are there, and it is already few years in which these have been actually being constructed and being deployed into the industry. There are some changes. We will talk about those changes, very recent changes also. What has been cloud computing roadmap so far, right? Where it evolved from. What are the public cloud providers, today in the market? So we can talk about that. We will talk about containers, because containers is also a technology that that brings in new way of deployment, new way of using our assets and infrastructure. But then it is very much aligned to the cloud ecosystem as well. So we'll talk about that. We will very briefly touch upon software defined network, because again this is connected. And in industry you will never have any technology which is in silos, right? All the things and the beauty of the technologies are always when it gets integrated and connected together. Then only you create beautiful beautiful use cases, beautiful ecosystems, right? Nothing works in silos, right? So we'll talk about software defined network. I will just touch upon if we have some time. We'll talk about COVID-19 impact, how it actually accelerated the roadmap and the adoption and the use cases. And we will also touch upon edge computing. This is something which is a buzzword, right? With 5G technologies coming in as well, I thought we might be very much interested in getting a little essence of this. From a cloud computing perspective, I always start with this slide. This is to tell you that this is nothing new, right? The business acronym, the business, the technology name that comes around it has some background. It doesn't suddenly come out, right? Even if you see AI/ML, even if you see different other technologies, right? It doesn't come out very just as a kind of a surprise. It has its context, and it is built upon creating the consolidations of many technologies all around and integrating it together, right? Similarly, cloud computing actually came along with three technologies or three key models. I would not call them technologies, three models, and bringing it all together creates the cloud computing environment. What are these? So it's about SOA. SOA is software-oriented architecture. You must be aware of, if you are part of software industry or if you have worked on, some kind of object-oriented architecture. We are all familiar with how we want to create any software or any kind of a environment in an object-oriented fashion, so that it is more plug and play. That you have four components which works with each other, and if I need a fifth component, it comes in and gets plugged into it, right? Which adds to the feature of the four ones. You don't need to change those four. Or if I don't, if I actually want to replace fourth component with a fifth component, I can do that as well. I'm sorry, just give me 1 second. I'm actually alone. I have to open the door. Just give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Yeah, extremely sorry for this. Yeah, so we were talking about SOA, the software-oriented architecture. Um, yeah, and the second aspect that brings cloud computing together is the utility computing. So utility computing has been there also earlier. It is about creating a computing environment in a utility fashion. So what are utility? Utility is something, a resource that you pay, and you are metered for it, right? So you pay as much as you actually use it. So utility computing is also that aspect where the amount of computing that you're using, the amount of computing power that you're using, you actually pay for it. So it's actually a metered user, right? So pay as you go or pay as much as you use. So that's a concept in utility computing. And then a beautiful aspect of SLA also comes into it. SLA is service line agreement. So service line agreement is a kind of a commitment that when you actually sign up for my service, then I would give you these would be my agreement criteria, right? These would be my SLAs in the sense that the performance, I would actually give you that much performance. I would make sure that my resources are not down, maybe few hours in the full year, or maybe the accessibility is this much, in terms of performance, in terms of various other aspects. So all these three together actually brings a beautiful paradigm of cloud computing, where you have an object oriented architecture, where you have the cost aspect, where you are bringing in the model of paying for the service as much as you're using. If you're not using, you don't need to pay. And then also you're bringing in a commitment from the provider, commitment from the industry, that what you actually sign up for, that you will get. And if you don't get, then actually there's a penalty clauses around, and there are different other elements to cover that up, right? So with that, the concept of cloud computing comes up with, as I said, utility computing, SOA, and SLA, and what all it brings in, right? So it brings in many other aspects. There are many more aspects. I've just tried to put 5 of those here. Um, the prime ones are the availability and the reliability, right? So aspects like fault tolerance, and even if you're not from software industry, you have been all around. In any industry you go, there's always a concept of fault tolerance. That what are my backups? How much destructions I can absorb? What is my resiliency in terms of the infrastructure that I have, and what is the security, right? So all that comes in with cloud computing in a much more advanced manner, because when you have those assets in your system as an independent user, you have many restrictions. There are so many little things only that you can do. But when you actually to take it to a grander level, take it to the cloud level, you get the availability and reliability in much more better fashion, right? And it also comes from a fact that in case, and you might have also, heard about high availability and disaster recovery. I think Professor Huda was talking about disaster recovery. So there as well, if your system which you are actually accessing goes down, then the provider would make sure that the same system is up and running somewhere else in some other geography or some other data center, and you are not even you don't even know about it. So that's the beautiful aspect this actually gives you, and it's a huge advantage for the business. Huge advantage. I mean, uh, we actually when we look into the business, we see it from a sunny day scenario, right? Things working well, we are earning revenue. These are the pricing models and so on. But always there is a we always do that risk analysis that if something goes bad, what happens and so on. So this comes from those aspects. Scalability and elasticity is all about dynamic provision. It is one aspect is that of course you are paying as much as you're using, which we talked about, but it is also that in case my user pattern goes up, then I am able to scale up as well very, very quickly, right? You won't be able to do that when you actually own the system, because you have to procure your infrastructure, you have to deploy that infrastructure, provision it, there are so many aspects around it and so on. So that way, scalability and elasticity for the growth aspects of any industry is very important, and not even for growth. In case even if you are anticipating that I will not have growth and my business will go down. So legacy systems, right? Legacy systems actually sometimes industries create a kind of end of life for one technology or one product, and brings in another product, and brings in the adoption of other product in a much advanced fashion. So there also it is scalability is not just about scaling up, it is also about scaling down, right? And if I can have the flexibility to do that dynamically, then nothing like it. I mean, it's kind of I have all the advantages there. Manageability, interoperability. Manageability, you all know, right? It is all about managing it from a centralized manner. Interoperability is about you have the infrastructure which actually interfaces with many other many other infrastructure as well. It has a standard interfaces. It has a standard way of working, so that you would be able to better create different use cases by creating those integrations altogether, right? So that way, even the billing system, you can integrate those billing systems. That all happens through the paradigm of cloud computing. So you might have seen even the mobile bills that you get. There are so many service providers now coming up with an integrated bill of mobile device, as well as your DTH, as well as your broadband in your at your home and so on. So that integrated system can only be enabled when you have standard interfaces. When you have that as standard interface in a centralized location, getting collated together and then creating that particular use case. Accessibility, portability, right? I mean, thin client is a concept since it's very data. I mean, it has been there since the World Wide Web has actually come in. So that's something that brings along with cloud computing. We don't have any more thick clients, so we all have browsers through which we actually access this, right? So that is a table stick today. But then the uniform access in the sense that the way you access it, the different browsers that you use, different versions that you use, different devices that you use, still actually gives you the same kind of a user experience, right? So that doesn't come out very, very easily through your legacy system, or your through on-premise system. That comes out when you have something integrated together. And then performance and optimizations, we all talked about. It's all about uh, being much more performant in terms of doing parallel processing. There's a load balancing concept where in case a particular machine or a particular infrastructure is getting bogged down or hogged because of a lot of load, it can actually be multiplex, right? So that's about the load balancing and job scheduling. Very quickly, the enabling technologies. The left hand side that you see here, that's the traditional architecture. And let me actually have. So that's a traditional architecture that we all were used to about a decade back, or maybe before that. And then the technology that actually changed the paradigm was about the virtual architecture, the virtual machines that we see today, right? So virtual machines enabled the cloud computing infrastructure. That's not the So virtual architecture is not exactly cloud computing, right? Virtual architecture, you can have it in your on your laptop as well, in your desktop, in your own machine as well. But then it is the baseline standard baseline in technology through which we can enable sharing. So that's the whole concept of virtual architecture. Um, we did see a lot of those cloud computing benefits in our earlier slide, but some of this which we have not talked about is I will not touch upon disaster recovery and flexibility and so on. We all are aware of it, but very important concept is early to market, right? How as soon as, because today in today's world, as much you can bridge the gap between the idea that you generate in your mind, the idea that you implement, in your factory. Factory could be software as well. I mean, factory doesn't need to be just hardware asset, but the idea that you generate wherever you want to, and the idea that you can actually deploy and quickly make it available to the market. So it's all about how quickly you can do it, even if the idea is a failure, right? Everything doesn't click. Even if it is failure, how quickly you can fail, how quickly you can actually get into it. So cloud computing allows you to do it, right? It allows you to create a POC, productize it, implement it very, very quickly. You don't need, a lot of money. You don't need a lot of, infrastructure and enablement programs there. You just deploy it, make it available, and then be confident that I will either shut it down, right? Of course, we don't want to, but still, if it doesn't go well, I can shut it down very quickly without incurring any cost, or I can scale up to whatever level if it actually is clicking through, right? So that's the whole commitment or the whole confidence that this technology brings in. And how does it do it? We know it. It is because those infrastructure is made available very quickly, but there are underlining things like DevOps environment, and I'll talk about DevOps a little bit later on. But how quickly you can deploy, automate, and upgrade your software which you have put on the cloud, right? So this becomes very 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 it is a key criteria for your success and your business case, right? So that is what cloud computing brings in. This actually talks about a perspective from the user. It is not very much very much aligned to cloud computing. I mean, it's not very specific to cloud computing, but it's a very generic term, right? In the sense that the user, today user wants to focus on what they get out of the system, right? What is the quality of service? How much I have to pay? It doesn't matter that where my infrastructure is, where what I mean, how the provider is actually providing it, or how does the work actually happens, right? So whether I am an end user using the service, whether I am a user who is actually deploying my software, right? All I care about is service. So service industry is booming up like anything, and cloud computing is part of the service industry, enabling that service industry to flourish. Evolution of computing, cloud computing, as we were talking about, it's not something that which has come up in in very quick time. Those concepts were there earlier, right? And if we actually go back, it actually starts from utility market. In fact, right. So grid computing, that was some parallel computing that was introduced way back, I think in 1960s, or maybe 1970s, right? It has a part of it was distributed computing as well, which was a little later, but it was the initiative of Globus Alliance that actually created the concept of grid computing, all the infrastructure coming together and creating a parallel processing environment, right? And then utility computing comes from utility sector, right? So as Professor Huda was also talking about, right, your electricity bill. I mean, earlier it used to be very, very much closely guarded in few, with few individuals. but then it actually, was made available to everybody. And today, the way we actually consume utilities, whether it is water, whether it is electricity or any other utility, we consume it as a metered service, right? So the more you actually consume, the more you have to pay. Or there are other aspects about, when to use, what are the billing factors, the peak and the peak hours, the non-peak hours. I mean, all those concepts came into utility computing later on, right? And that is there in cloud computing as well. So that is the second portion of it. Then the third portion was software as a service. It was in the dot-com era as well. So this was all about subscription-based services. Anything that so you have your email services, you have your CRM services like Salesforce, you have your, I mean, today even Office 365 is kind of a software service, and not a kind of, it is actually a software service, right? So that's the whole paradigm shift where more than the licenses that you buy for yourself, you actually use the software on the cloud as a utility service, right? And the cloud computing is much more advanced. I mean, it is just not software as a service. It is giving you the scalability. It is giving you the next generation data centers. It is giving you technologies like containerizations, standardizations, and so on and so forth. So that's a new era that we have seen along this. Now let me explain what is pay by use, right? Maybe it is very generic term. It is very quickly can be visualized. But then if you look into this graph, right? So normally the way we actually do our business case whenever we make our services available to the market is that we optimize in terms of our opex, right? Operational cost. Of course, we try to optimize on capex as well, but the operational cost, the cost aspect, if we can actually have it consistent to our revenue, right? That is the most successful business model that we would like to have. So if the revenue increases, I am fine to increase my cost, right? But if my revenue is decreasing or if my revenue is consistent and then still I am incurring the same amount of cost, then I would like to, I mean, that is not a good business model, right? So the way we actually look into it is that we don't want to underestimate our infrastructure need. We don't want to overestimate our infrastructure need, right? Normally in any kind of a resource, in any kind of a services, you will see that the demand versus the capacity is always like this, right? So when you have it in your data center, your capacity is at a particular level. That is a threshold. You cannot go beyond it. And your demand will actually fluctuate like this, right? And if it actually goes above the capacity, there are only two ways. One is I will lose this revenue, the gray items, or I will lose the users, right? I will have to decrease the users. I will have to decrease the subscription at that particular time, or I will have to let go the revenue that was getting generated, right? It is one and the same thing in many aspects, but still what I would like to have it is that my users would decrease slowly and it would come to a level which can actually my capacity can handle, right? I would not also like to overestimate that my capacity is much beyond than the peak load, because all those gray areas I'm actually not underutilizing or not utilizing at all, right? So the best way is that my capacity actually goes all along with the demand. So that is the pay by use factor that comes and benefits your business model, where you are paying for what you're using. Now we talked about everything that brings in or kicks in the cloud computing, right? But there are many aspects which are still the pitfalls, and these are not exactly pitfalls. I mean, a lot of these has been addressed by industry in very many different ways. But still, whenever you go to that environment and create a productized version, which is available to the market, you have to be conscious about this, right? It is not about that we don't have a solution. It's just about the consciousness. So the pitfalls are about downtime. I mean, we have come a long way there, right? I don't think we do see outages. I mean, it's not that we don't see outages. I think very recently, few months back, AWS also had an outage where lot of the business loss, their customers were losing revenue just because of that. but then it is much less than what you could have in your own environment, right? Security is very, very important, right? I mean, all those customers, all those organizations who have very sensitive data, they still feel a little apprehensive about putting their data into the cloud system, even if they have a commitment from the provider that there is a secure environment, there's a air gap infrastructure, whatever it is, but at the end it is going through the network to a particular infrastructure which is not owned by the organization. So it is still an issue, but it is something like, if I may just give a analogy, is about your digital currency versus your cash currency, right? So the money that you have it in hand, I mean, at least earlier in the days, it always used to be, you feel more confident than what is there lying in your bank somewhere in some environment which can be lost. I mean, that's a kind of apprehensions we have, and actually it is that kind of an environment, which means we have seen, I mean, we are very confident that our money is lying in the bank today, right? We don't ever think about it. Similarly, today in the environment, organizations just have to change their mindset and be confident and just look into it, that what are the factors that have actually the service providers implemented to make it secure. That's the bottom line, right? You have to change that mindset and go on. Vendor lock-in, that was also a very important factor. So vendor lock-in is about, if you actually select a cloud provider, your workloads are working on that cloud provider, and then are you able to migrate from one to the another cloud provider if you need to be, right? It could be because the cloud provider that you are in is going down, their brand is going down, or they are not able to meet the commitment of SLAs, or there is some dispute, right? It could be anything, but then you would not like to have a lot of cost incurred in case you need to migrate. So that has also come a long way. There are so many standards, so many interfaces now available that you don't have to worry much about it. Even the disaster recovery comes as a service, right, today, which means that if your workload is on AWS, for an example, and God forbid, if that particular geo or that particular service provider, all the data center goes down, your workload is in fact enabled in another service provider's infrastructure, which could be Google Cloud or maybe Azure, right? So this vendor lock-in is no more a big issue. Those all has been, I mean, standard always works for the entire industry, right? And that is how it is right now. Privacy and confidentiality, I think it's very much aligned to security aspect. Bandwidth, we have come a long way, long way, right? So today, our landline, your broadband connections, it has the required, bandwidth at your home. But then in organizations, you have your lease data, your optical network, and so on and so forth, right? Everything enables. It's not no more a concern. Compliance, yes, it is still, for regulated markets, at least for federal agencies, for regulated markets, compliance is definitely an issue. I think there are country-specific compliance, regulatory compliance, where you cannot keep a data in a particular geography, or you cannot have the data outside your own, geographic boundaries, and so on. We see this, probably every day in the newspapers. So that's still a big issue, right? And but the service providers are addressing it, right? So they have now big infrastructures, they have it all over the world. So they are able to make themselves compliant with these migration complexities. I mean, it goes hand in hand with vendor lock-in, but it is also about how do you move your software or service from on-premise to cloud? What kind of migration complexity is involved, right? That's a one-time cost. I think all the service providers have made services available where they help their customers migrate from the legacy infrastructure to the cloud infrastructure. They help the customers, and it is no more an issue as well, right? But you have to be conscious about this. It's not about there's no solution, but is just for those factors to take care. Cloud adoption challenges. I think I'll just skip this slide. It is very similar to what we already discussed, right? And then let's go ahead with some more concepts. Security challenges. You know, again, this is more about what are the different parameters or ways of securing your cloud environments. You can just look into it. This actually gives you 8 different ways or 8 different key elements through which cloud environments are made secure. And then you might have heard about DevOps, where development and operations comes together. But today what we have in the industry is DevSecOps, right? Where the development, the security aspects are all about vulnerabilities, different security compliance issues, and so forth. And the operational aspects, all three come together to create an environment which is much secure in the cloud. So we might hear a lot of these DevSecOps way of developing a software much more. And today, in fact, Capgemini and all the industry leaders have already adopted this development environment. Sorry, I'll skip the security as well. But this just give you a gist of that for the top CIOs, right, who are implementing cloud technologies for the infrastructure, security is still an issue, right? The reason why they are not able to take that leap is because of security and regulations, right? And how big is this cloud security? I mean, it just gives you some data that 18.1% of file uploads have very sensitive data, right? Which if actually is leaked, then can create an havoc, right? 61% of the companies see compliance or regulations as an issue, right? And 33% sees the skill shortage, and 81.4% of enterprises actually sees the threats per month have increases over the last year. They have realized this. Right? I'll talk about service models very quickly. I think we have 10 minutes more. Service models, and this is nothing new. I think probably you might have touched upon it many times earlier. The way these services are made available, cloud services are made available, basically fits into three zones, right? Today it is much beyond, right? Today even you have a concept of XaaS, which is anything as a service, and you have many more things, right? Disaster recovery as a service that we talked about. So you can create those models around a particular use case made as available as a service. But at the base, it is about infrastructure as a service, which is you are giving a resource, a virtualized resource to the user, right? And the user has to make sure that they are able to deploy the operating system, the databases, the applications, the libraries for themselves and use it the way they use their own infrastructure, right? The service provider would make sure that everything related to networking, the virtualization layer, the bare metal infrastructure and everything is fit and fine, and other aspects are created, are owned by the user. Platform as a service is where even databases, very standard platforms where you can actually use that platform to deploy your own application or create your own applications are used and given by the service provider, and you just make sure that you are focused into creating applications out of it, right? There are many examples, and we'll touch upon those examples in a later slide. But platform as a service is a paradigm where it is mainly for focusing on the business logic rather than looking back into many other aspects to make it available. Software as a service is end users, user, where the vendor or the service provider is giving you end-to-end everything, right? You just are an end user and using it, and you are paying as much as you're using. There's another way of showing it. We'll again not go into that detail. These slides will be available, I think, through different channels. But you can just go through it, what other elements actually comes along, from these service models. Right. Now, then we come to the deployment models. Again, an important aspect, right? How these clouds are deployed or implemented. One of this, what we have always been talking about is the public cloud, right? So public cloud is about what we see today, right? AWS or Azure or Google Cloud or IBM Cloud or Alibaba and so many, right? So those are the service providers, and even there are companies who are who are the CSPs of the cloud service provider, right? Which actually means that they take a slice of infrastructure from these providers and create their own environment and make it available to the customer, right? But let's not get into that. So what I'm trying to say here is that we have a concept of public cloud. Everybody is available, aware of it. Then we have a concept of private cloud, right? So the private data centers that we have, and which was there already earlier. That's all about private cloud. Of course, there's more to it. So when you have a data center, when you have a now, what is a data center? I mean, data center is kind of your computer room that you have in your colleges or institutes, right? So you have a basic infrastructure like all the services, all the hardware, servers, storage, everything that is in a hub room, and then that is being used through a network by different other end users, right? So that's the data center. Even data center can be modeled into a cloud, because at the end, what is cloud? Cloud is public cloud is a data center that is made available to everybody, right? So similarly, private cloud is a data center that is available to a private set of users, right? And it is not available through a public URL or public IP address. So it is much more secure. Of course, the pitfall is that you have to create your own infrastructure, manage it just like you were doing in a data center. But the advantage that you get is that you have within your enterprise, you can create a cloud environment which can give scalability to the end user within your enterprise, right? Which means that if there are 1,000 users, and if 100 users are using at a time, then it is serving only those 100 users, right? And it is able to reuse the infrastructure that was being used by other people, but they are not using it right now. Or they can create dynamic provisions and dynamic infrastructure uses scalability aspects within a private environment. So that's about private cloud. And we also have a hybrid cloud, which is a hybrid of this, as the name says, where some portion of the service is on the public cloud and some portion is the private cloud, right? Now, why we have a hybrid cloud? Again, for the sensitivity of data. So normally in hybrid cloud, the data portion of it is maintained within the enterprise environment, and the infrastructure and the compute is maintained by the service provider, the public service provider. So that's where the concept came in. Right. Again, this is just a summary how the cloud computing is divided between the two. These are examples, right? What is public, private, even community cloud is a concept which is an offshoot of hybrid cloud only, right? But it's a different environment altogether. In different examples of SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. I mean, you all are aware of it, but this is just some things. For the people who are new and who actually wants to go through this journey, these are some links through which you can create your own environment. These are all free access. AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, all three gives 12 months of free services or free access. And I think it gives beyond as well for very limited time, right? So you all can go there and just try to see what you get out of it. These are the three public cloud providers at this moment, three top ones, right? And this is just a comparison of how they are actually doing in the industry. What are the SLAs? So if you see SLAs are a very key component of it, right? Even if we might not we might not recognize or appreciate it in a fashion, from a perspective of end user at this moment, but for business it is very, very critical. So all the service providers gives you 99.9%, and even they go to 2 nines or 3 nines as well, depending upon what kind of payment. And your payment or your billing is very much linked to the SLA as well, right? So that's how it is. And then you can look into different ways that it supports different availability zones. Now, availability zones is also a very key factor. It gives you the kind of high availability and disaster recovery that this particular service provider can give you, right? So for example, if it has just data centers in two cities, and if one of the city, for whatever reason, the electricity goes off or there's some other issues, then it has just one more city where it can actually serve the mission critical workloads. So that is not enough, right? So all these service providers are trying to get to different diverse geographies to make sure that if they are able to serve their customers in a much more resilient fashion. Um, these are some factors that 20% of enterprise workloads have moved to cloud. There's still a way to go, right? I mean, a lot of adoption by the industry is still to happen, and the reason behind it is not just the technology; it is also behind most of these mission critical workloads are very important for the entire industry and the entire ecosystem, and they are just being cautious, right? That's what I can say. I'll talk about a little bit about containers because these are very internal portion of the cloud computing. So we are all aware of virtual machines where we have a server and these are virtualized into different machines. Why these are called virtual machines? Because one machine can actually create various machines as well, right, in a virtual fashion. Even if at the end it is hosted by the same physical hardware, right? Similarly, containers are something where it is actually on the same technology, but then instead of the hypervisor, you have a container engine. And then the basic funda around it is that you can create a software offering and bundle everything together, which works end to end, right? So the deployment becomes very easy. The scalability becomes very easy. The upgrades becomes very easy. The operational aspects becomes absolutely easy. And the containers also gives you the concept of microservices where scalability of a particular service can actually be much more dynamic than what we used to have at virtual machines. So that's a little I mean, container concept is also not new. It is coming from the Linux world, erstwhile Linux world, but the way it has been put together, the way it has been used as in the industry is something which is creating very powerful use cases, right? This just gives you again a kind of differences or comparison between different infrastructure models. Um, CI/CD, this is again enabled. CI is continuous integration, CD is continuous development, right? These are all automation of your product offering in the public cloud or in the cloud, right? Which means that today, if you actually use any of those software services in the cloud, uh, how quickly the vendor is able to give you a fix, or how quickly they are able to um, you know uh, take their new product or the new releases to the environment is very important, right? So everywhere you see there is a lot of focus on the automation, and a portion of that automation is that you do continuous automation, continuous integration, right? Just to make sure that whatever you are doing doesn't break in between. So that actually gives you the confidence that I am able to take my development into the production very very quickly, as quickly as possible, right? So this is the whole concept of CI/CD, and now it is about DevOps, which is all about automation and creating an automated pipeline. Right, typical container stack layer. These are some of the technologies or the tech stack that people use, right, for creating containers. Docker is one more enabling technologies about OS level virtualization. Kubernetes, I don't think you see the name here, but Kubernetes is the orchestration portion, right? So when we talked about SUA, yeah, the service oriented architecture, the whole concept is how you modularize or how you create modules and make it fit together, right? So orchestration is the enabler where the services that are hosted can be would be able to talk to each other, would be able to create a powerful use cases just by orchestrating data between each other, right? So that's a portion that Kubernetes uses to create, different services just by orchestration. OpenShift is something from Red Hat, right? And it is a PaaS platform for, and it has Kubernetes inbuilt. I mean, there are a lot of other aspects coming in, along with Kubernetes. Right. I will just touch upon, maybe I'll take 2-3 minutes more. Five trends from cloud computing post COVID-19, right? Because it's very important, and we have seen it that with the digital adoption, we do see that cloud computing is one of the accelerator that has actually created, or that has accelerated the digital transformation of the environment, right? So we are very confident that SaaS growth will continue, and everything and anything that is digitized would be made available through SaaS, right? The gone are the days when we were, gone are the days even for capex, expenditure for the digitized assets, right? It will all be all OpEx. It will all be made available in a utility fashion, right? The use of containers will increase, right? Because of course this is a technology that is enabling a lot of optimizations in the deployments, a lot of optimizations in the cost to create and make it available to the market. Productization of a concept is a huge cost. So you can create an algorithm, and I know R&D can create a lot of concepts, a lot of POCs, but to take it to the market and create the whole ecosystem around it, it's again a big cost, right? So the containers are making sure, and the cloud technology is making sure that we are able to do it as quickly as possible with a reduced cost. The demand for hybrid cloud will rise. Hybrid cloud is the trend that we have been seeing. Even there are public cloud, a lot of public cloud providers today, but hybrid cloud for industries which are very regulated industry. And that is why you see some of the enterprises have a lot of focus on hybrid cloud, right? For example, Red Hat has a lot of focus on hybrid cloud. They are not service providers, right? Public cloud providers, but they have a lot of IBM, Red Hat, they have a lot of focus on hybrid cloud. Serverless computing is again a different paradigm, but very much aligned to cloud computing. That will actually create a different ecosystem. Cost optimization will definitely drive cloud adoption. With COVID-19, people are impacted. They would like to see, how much cost optimizations we can do in making things available and serving our customers, right? So that's the whole concept. Software-defined network. I'll not get into it, right, because we don't have time today. But that's a topic for another day, maybe some other day. It's very interesting topic. It's just making sure that you can define the entire network through software, right? Just the way we used to have intelligent network in the telecom world, where a particular network element was creating and creating or defining the entire telecom services, right? Similarly, here also the concept of virtualization comes in, where a particular element or a particular infrastructure creates the entire network, and you are able to define it through software, right? So that's again a different concept. Very quickly, edge computing, because this is, I thought that this would be very interesting, and you might have heard about it so many times. Edge computing is, of course, being enabled by cloud computing, right? So it's all about cloud computing, but it's a little different in terms of cloud computing is more about computation at a centralized portion on the cloud, at the at the data center of the service provider, right? Edge computing is a concept where computation is being done at the edge. Very near to where the data is getting produced. And why is it so? Just to not have the latency of creating data and then sending it back to some other location to doing the computing and get back the result and then taking decisions and so on. So edge computing is making sure for very 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 fast computation needs, like connected cars, like IoT environments, like automations, in an environment which are life threatening, or which requires very high computation. Edge computing is coming up. Even it is coming up in different industries, where we are able to serve customers in a much better fashion, right? For example, I'm just giving an example. Even Netflix would be using edge computing, right? Because they think that in a particular location, whenever a movie is released in that particular location, that the streaming of that release is very high, right? So what they would probably do is they would create a cache in that locality itself, so that the streaming can be very much optimized in terms of network bandwidth as well as the user experience to the end user. So there are many use cases that are coming out specifically with 5G and IoT technologies and edge computing, which is enabled by cloud computing but used in a different fashion. Right. In summary, I think we talked about cloud computing, various benefits, service models, deployment models, pitfalls. We talked about containers. We talked about digital transformations that COVID-19 has accelerated. We also talked about, SGN and edge computing a little bit there as well, right? So thank you. It was a privilege to have this session. And over to you, Dr. Aishi.
Thank you so much, sir. I am sure that this session has been insightful for all the participants. I would like to take few of the questions with your permission. May I, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So firstly, I have a question that what limitations do you feel or the biggest issues are there for cloud computing?
Yeah, so there are few. There's few. One of this is security, and as I said, we have come a long way to address this. It's a long way in the sense that today, at least if you have a business to start, you would not be much apprehensive about securing your data because you're putting it in the cloud. Still, there are issues related to security when there are very data sensitive, very critical data, from the, as I was saying, from the regulated market, and they still don't want to keep it on the on the cloud, right? And there are regulations around it, right? Regulation in the sense who can use that data, how much data can be actually stored, what geography. Even if cloud computing doesn't talk about geography, but there are regulatory requirements through which you have to make sure that you are keeping the data, localized data in the locality itself. Then there are GDPR, different standards that are coming up, which are more stringent and understandably so. So all that actually creates more and more challenges, but we have a very secured environment where we can see all those challenges getting addressed.
Okay, my another question to you is, sir, many years back, security was possibly one big worry on cloud computing. Now, is it fully taken care of? What is your take on this?
Yeah, more or less. But there would be standards that would come in, and there'll always be evolutions, right? So I mean, even with all the secure environment that you see, you still have seen that the Ames data center was taken over, right? Some days back, there was an outage, there was a threat, and the data center was down. So still there are a lot of challenges, but cloud computing, more than creating a complication, it is actually helping you. If you ask me, because these service providers who are big service providers who have the industry best experts, they are making sure that your infrastructure is secure, your data is secure, rather than you doing it yourself. You are hiring the experts who are actually doing it for you, right? I mean,
Okay.
if you have something to offer to this as a services, you will have to make it enabled, whether you do it through a SaaS model, whether you do it through your own data center, you have to make it available. So it is always a threat because it is available on the network, it is available on the public internet, and you are always susceptible to those challenges. But more you use cloud computing, right, you would be able to use those standards that are already in place in those data centers.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I would now like to request Professor M.N. Huda, sir, to please present a certificate to Mr. Deepak Goyal, sir, as a token of remembrance. Please, sir. So this, please accept the certificate from our end.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think sir might be busy at some place. So this is just for not certification. It is a token of remembrance from our end, from our BVI Camp family. Also, I would like to request to please share, Manish sir, to please share the e-memento to you as a gratitude from BVI CAM family.
Thank you.
Please accept this memento from our end, sir. We are obliged that you spared time for us and gave us such an insightful session to our audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I would now like to thank all our distinguished panelists and participants who have continuously supported us through the webinar and also who have joined us all through the day. Dear participants, the certificate link has been shared on the chat window. You are requested to please find the link and fill up the same for the smooth certification process. Also, dear participants, the important details and recorded activity of this session shall be made available on our YouTube channel at the earliest possible. So, you are requested to please find the details of our YouTube channel and subscribe the same for regular updates. The link for the certificates has already been shared on the chat window, dear participants. You are requested to please find the link, tap onto that link and fill up the certificate form, and also you are requested to please enter the data correctly as you require it in your certificate. I thank Harjinder Singh Bhatia sir, Dr. Javed sir, Subramaniam sir for sparing time and joining us. Dear participants, the link has been shared on the chat window. I request you to please find the link and fill up the feedback form for smooth certification of your session for today. I request all dear participants to please enter the data correctly as the auto system works seamlessly. Dear participants, you are requested to please give your Gmail ID also. Also, dear participants, whatever name or designation you require, please enter the same correctly in your feedback form. It is to inform you, dear participants, that this link is active only till this window is open. Once we close the window, we may not be able to help you with regard to your certificate of participation. You are requested to please fill up the feedback form right now till the window is active.